Why is she even on stage? She can't even speak properly, my mom said, loud enough for half the auditorium to hear. A few people chuckled. My daughter froze midline, and I felt something inside me snap. I stood up so fast my chair scraped loudly against the floor. My heart was pounding, my hands shaking, but before I could even say a word, the principal walked onto the stage, holding a folder. And everything changed. My name is Danielle Harper. I'm 34 years old. And I've spent most of my life helping people find their voice, while fighting to protect my daughters. I work as a speech therapist at a public elementary school. It's not glamorous work. No one claps for it. No one brags about it at family dinners. But to me it matters. Because I've seen what happens when a child finally says what they've been too afraid to say. I've seen confidence built, one word at a time. And my daughter Lily, she was one of those kids. She's 10 now. Bright, kind, sensitive in a way that makes you want to protect her from everything harsh in the world. But growing up she struggled with speech delays. Words didn't come easily to her. Sentences would break, sounds would stick, and people weren't always patient. Especially not my family. I was a single mom. Lily's father left when she was barely a year old. No calls, no support, just gone. So it was always me and her. Late nights, early mornings, juggling work and therapy sessions, trying to give her everything I never had. And still, it never felt like enough in their eyes. My family had their favorites. My older sister, Rebecca, she had the perfect life. Big house, successful husband, 2 kids who spoke like little geniuses before they even turned 5. At least that's how my mom described them. At every family gathering it was always the same. Rebecca's son just won another award. Rebecca's daughter is already reading chapter books. Rebecca this, Rebecca that. And then there was Lily. She's sweet, my mom would say in that tone that didn't feel like a compliment at all. Or worse. She's a little behind, isn't she? I used to bite my tongue. For years. Because I didn't want Lily to hear it. But kids always hear more than you think. I remember one night after a family dinner, Lily asked me quietly from the back seat, "Mom, why does Grandma always sound sad when she talks about me?" That question stayed with me. Because I didn't have a good answer. The truth was, my mom didn't believe in her. She believed in perfection. In fast results. In kids who performed well, spoke clearly, impressed people. Lily took her time. She needed patience. Encouragement. Space to grow. Things my mom never understood. But I did. And I made a promise to myself early on. I would never let Lily feel like she was less than anyone. No matter who said it. Even if that who was my own mother. Over the years Lily improved. Slowly, steadily, beautifully. Every small milestone felt huge to us. The first time she introduced herself clearly to a stranger. The first time she read a full paragraph without stopping. The first time she stood up in class and answered a question out loud. Each moment, a victory. And then came the school play. It was a small production. Nothing fancy. Just a simple story about courage and friendship. But when Lily came home and told me she got a speaking role, I knew what that meant. This wasn't just a play. This was her moment. Her breakthrough. Her chance to stand in front of people and say, "I can do this." We practiced every night. Sometimes it was smooth. Sometimes she'd get stuck, frustrated, even tearful. "I can't do it, Mom," she'd say, her voice shaking. And I'd kneel in front of her, hold her hands and say, "You don't have to be perfect. You just have to try again." And she always did. That's what people didn't see about Lily. They saw hesitation. I saw courage. They saw mistakes. I saw effort. They saw weakness. I saw strength building, quietly. And maybe that's why it hurt so much when the one person who should have supported her the most did the opposite. The day of the play, Lily was nervous but excited. She wore her costume proudly, holding the script even though she didn't need it anymore. "Mom, what if I mess up?" she asked me just before we left. I smiled, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Then you keep going," I said. "Because that's what strong people do." She nodded. And for a moment, I thought everything would be okay. But I should have known better. Because when we arrived at the school auditorium, I saw my mom, front row, right in the center, smiling in a way that didn't feel supportive. More like, she was waiting for something. And suddenly I had this uneasy feeling in my chest. Like something was about to go wrong. I leaned down to Lily and said softly, "Just focus on me, okay? I'll be right there." She nodded again and walked backstage. The lights dimmed. Parents quieted. Phones came out. The play began. Everything was going fine at first. Kids forgot lines, stumbled a bit, normal things. The audience smiled, laughed gently, encouraged them. Then it was Lily's turn. She walked onto the stage. Small, brave, trying so hard. She looked out into the crowd, found me, and I gave her a reassuring nod. She took a breath and started her line. There was a tiny pause. Just a second. But she kept going. And I felt proud. So incredibly proud. Until that voice cut through the room. Loud. Unapologetic. "Oh no. This is painful to watch." My mom. And just like that, everything started to fall apart. Lily's eyes flickered. Just for a second. But I saw it. That tiny crack in her confidence. The one we had spent years trying to heal. Her voice, which had just begun to steady, trembled again. She tried to continue. A few people in the audience shifted uncomfortably. Someone coughed. A parent whispered, "Too." But my mom didn't stop. "She's not ready for this," she said, leaning slightly toward my aunt, but still loud enough for rows around her to hear. I told them this would happen. I felt heat rush to my face. My fingers curled into fists. I stood up halfway from my seat, whispering sharply, "Mom, stop." She didn't even look at me. Just waved her hand like I was interrupting something unimportant. On stage, Lily froze completely. Her lips parted, but no words came out. Her little hands tightened at her sides. And then I saw it. The one I had seen years ago when she was just learning to speak. Fear. Not of forgetting the lines, but of being judged, of being watched, of being laughed at. Behind the curtain, one of the teachers, Mrs. Carter, leaned forward slightly, giving Lily a gentle, encouraging nod. "It's okay," she mouthed. But the moment had already shifted. The audience wasn't just watching anymore. They were waiting. And Lily could feel it. "I'm sorry," she whispered, barely audible. My heart broke right there in that seat. I didn't care about the play anymore. I didn't care about the audience. I just wanted to run up there, hold her, and take her away from all of it. But before I could move, a voice echoed through the microphone. "Let's pause for a moment." The principal. He stepped onto the stage, calm but firm. The room went quiet almost instantly. Even my mom stopped talking. At first, I thought he was going to gently move things along. Maybe give Lily a moment backstage. Maybe reassure the audience. But then I noticed something. He wasn't looking at Lily. He was looking at the crowd. More specifically, to my mom. And in his hands, that folder. Thick. Organized. Intentional. "This school," he began, his voice steady, "is committed to creating a safe and supportive environment for every child." A few parents nodded. Some looked confused. My mom crossed her arms, already looking annoyed. "I'm sure this is about stage fright," she muttered under her breath. But the principal continued. "And that includes protecting them, not just from failure." He paused. "But from discouragement." Something in his tone made the room shift. It wasn't casual. It wasn't improvised. It felt planned. Deliberate. He opened the folder slowly. Paper against paper. A sound that suddenly felt louder than it should. "Before we continue the play," he said, "there's something I believe needs to be addressed." A ripple of whispers spread across the audience. I felt my pulse quicken. But suddenly, I understood. This wasn't just about Lily freezing on stage. This was about something bigger. My mom. She still had no idea. She leaned back in her chair, almost smug. "Finally," she whispered, "someone's going to say it." But she was wrong. So wrong. The principal turned slightly toward the side of the stage. "Could we bring up the AV support, please?" That's when a screen behind the stage flickered. A projector hummed to life. And now, people weren't just curious. They were focused. Fully. Lily stood there, still frozen, eyes wide, not understanding what was happening. I caught her gaze again. And this time I didn't just smile. I nodded. A stronger nod. But deep down, I knew this moment, this painful, uncomfortable public moment, was about to turn into something no one expected. Especially not the person who caused it. Behind me, someone whispered, "What's going on?" Another voice replied, I don't think this is about the play anymore. And they were right. Because what was about to unfold had been building for a long time. Long before tonight. Long before that comment. Long before Lily ever stepped onto that stage. Because this wasn't the first time my mom had done something like this. Not even close. And the worst part? She always thought she was helping. I'm just being honest, she would say. Someone has to tell the truth. But her truth always sounded like doubt. Like judgment. Like quiet cruelty dressed up as concern. I remembered one afternoon weeks before the play. We were at the school for rehearsal pickup. Lily had just finished practicing her lines. She was tired but proud. I did it without stopping today, she told me, smiling. And before I could even respond, my mom, who had insisted on coming along that day, said, well, let's not get too excited. It's just rehearsal. Lily's smile faded instantly. I saw it. Mrs. Carter saw it too. She stepped in gently. That was actually a big improvement, she said. She's been working very hard. But my mom just shrugged. We'll see how she does in front of real people. That moment stuck with me. Because it wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. But it chipped away at something important. And there were more. So many more. Family dinners where Lily would stay quiet because she didn't want to mess up her words. Phone calls where my mom would ask about Rebecca's kids first. And Lily second. Comments like, some kids just take longer, I guess. Or worse. Not everyone is meant to be in the spotlight. I had warned her. More than once. Mom, stop saying things like that in front of her. She needs encouragement, not criticism. But she'd always brush it off. You're too sensitive, Danielle. No, I'm realistic. Realistic. That word. Like hope was something foolish. Like belief was a mistake. But what she didn't understand was, I wasn't raising Lily to impress people. I was raising her to believe in herself. And that belief, it had been growing. Quietly. Powerfully. In ways my mom never noticed. Now, as the projector warmed up behind the principal, as the room held its breath, as my mom sat there completely unaware, that quiet growth was about to be seen. By everyone. The projector light flickered softly against the stage curtain, casting a pale glow across the room. You could feel it, the shift. People leaned forward in their seats. Conversations died mid-whisper. Even the kids backstage peeked through the curtain, sensing something bigger was happening. Lily. She was still standing there. Small. So unsure. But she hadn't run. That mattered more than anyone realized. The principal adjusted the microphone slightly. Then he said something that made my chest tighten. Before we play this, I want to be very clear. This is not about shaming anyone. He paused. This is about protecting a child. Silence. The kind that feels heavy. Intentional. The screen behind him came to life. The first clip appeared. Grainy. Slightly zoomed in. It was from a rehearsal day. Lily stood on the same stage holding her script, practicing her lines. Her voice was soft but steady. And then, from the side of the frame, my mom's voice. Well, she's still struggling, isn't she? A few gasps rippled through the audience. I closed my eyes for a second. Not because I didn't know this existed, but because hearing it out loud, like this, was different. It wasn't just a comment anymore. It was evidence. The clip continued. Mrs. Carter's voice responded calmly. She's improving every day. And then my mom again. I just don't think putting her on stage is a good idea. It could embarrass her. The video paused. The principal didn't say anything. He didn't need to. The room had already begun to understand. Behind me someone whispered, was that? Another voice answered quietly, yeah, I think so. I didn't look at my mom. I didn't need to. I could feel her shifting in her seat. Uncomfortable. But not yet shaken. The second clip started. This one was clearer. Recorded more recently. It was from just a few days ago. Lily had just finished a full run-through. She smiled, proud, looking toward the seats. And then, my mom's voice again. Let's hope she doesn't freeze like this during the real thing. A sharper reaction this time. More whispers. Less sympathy. And then, the third clip. Tonight. Just minutes ago. Clear audio. No doubt. Oh no. This is painful to watch. This time no one whispered. No one questioned. Because now, everyone knew. The video faded to black. The room stayed silent. Not confused. Not curious. But aware. Slowly, all those eyes that had been on the stage started turning. Toward the front row. Toward her. For the first time, my mom didn't look confident. She shifted again, crossing her arms tighter. "This is ridiculous," she said under her breath. "They're twisting things." But her voice didn't carry the same weight anymore. Because now, it wasn't just her words. It was her pattern. The principal stepped forward again. "Come." Measured. "We've been observing Lily's progress for several weeks," he said. "She has shown consistent improvement, dedication, and courage." His voice softened slightly. "More importantly, she has shown resilience." That word landed differently, because anyone who had just watched those clips understood exactly what it meant. He continued, "But growth like that doesn't happen in isolation." He glanced briefly toward the teachers. "It requires support, encouragement, belief." Then, without raising his voice, he added, "And unfortunately, we also have to address when those things are missing." You could feel it now. The shift wasn't subtle anymore. It was real. People weren't just watching. They were reevaluating everything. The principal turned slightly, gesturing toward the side of the stage. "Mrs. Carter," he said. She stepped forward. Composed. Steady. But I could see something in her eyes. Pride. Not in the moment. But in Lily. "She earned her role," Mrs. Carter said clearly. "She worked harder than most students in this production." She looked out at the audience. Then added, "And she never gave up. Not once." That hit me. Because it was true. Every late night. Every repeated line. Every frustrated tear that turned into determination. It all led here. And for the first time, it wasn't just me saying it. It wasn't just something hidden inside our small, quiet world. It was being recognized. Out loud. Publicly. My mom let out a short, dismissive laugh. "Oh please," she muttered. "This is being blown out of proportion." But no one laughed with her. No one nodded. Because now, the room had changed sides. And she could feel it. The principal turned back toward Lily. She was still standing there. Still quiet. But something had shifted in her posture. She wasn't shrinking anymore. He crouched slightly, lowering himself to her level. "Lily," he said gently, "would you like another chance?" The entire room held its breath. And I swear, in that moment, everything slowed down. Because this was the moment that mattered. Not the clips. Not the exposure. Not the embarrassment. Her choice. Her voice. Her courage. Lily looked at him. Then, me. And I didn't say anything. I just nodded. The same way I always did. Not pushing. Not pressuring. Just believing. She took a small breath. Then another. Slowly. She stepped forward. Into the light again. But what no one in that room knew, not even my mom, was just how ready she actually was. Because what they saw as hesitation was something I recognized instantly. Focus. And what they thought was weakness was something we had been building all along. Strength. The kind that doesn't shout. The kind that doesn't need attention. The kind that waits for the right moment. And this was hers. Lily stood there under the stage lights, her small frame outlined by that soft glow. For a second, no one moved. No one whispered. It was like the entire room had decided to give her something it hadn't before. Space. Real, quiet, respectful space. The principal stepped back slowly, giving her the stage again. Mrs. Carter moved to the side, her hands gently clasped, eyes locked on Lily with calm encouragement. Me. I couldn't even sit down anymore. I stood there just a few rows back, my heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. Lily adjusted her grip slightly. Her fingers relaxed. She didn't look at the audience this time. She didn't search for approval. She didn't scan for reactions. She just closed her eyes for half a second. The way we practiced. Pause, I used to tell her. Not because you're scared, but because you're choosing your next word. And then, she opened them. And spoke. Clear, steady, strong. Every word landed. Not rushed. Not forced. Not perfect but real. And that made it even more powerful. The first sentence finished. Then the second. And something incredible happened. No one interrupted. No one whispered. No one doubted. Because now, they were listening. Really listening. And Lily? He kept going. Line after line. Each one stronger than the last. It wasn't just memorization anymore. It was confidence. It was presence. It was everything we had worked for. Showing up exactly when it mattered most. Behind the curtain I saw one of the kids smile. Another whispered, "She's doing it." Mrs. Carter blinked quickly like she was holding back tears. Me. I wasn't even trying anymore. I just let them fall. Because this wasn't just a moment. This was proof. Proof that she was never behind. Proof that she was never too slow. Proof that everything people said about her was wrong. When she finished her final line, there was a beat. Just a second. Like the room needed time to catch up to what it had just witnessed. And then, applause. Loud. Not polite clapping. Not sympathy. Recognition. People stood. Some without even realizing it. Hands coming together again and again. And Lily. She didn't freeze this time. She didn't shrink. She smiled. Small but certain. And for the first time, she looked proud of herself. The principal stepped forward again, but this time, he didn't speak. He just nodded. Respect. That's what it was. Pure quiet respect. But not everyone in that room could share that moment. Because in the front row, my mom sat completely still. Her hands in her lap. Her expression, gone. No smile. No comment. No reaction she could control. Because there was nothing left to say. Everything she had believed, everything she had insisted was true, had just been proven wrong. Publicly. Completely. And not by me. Not by a teacher. But by the very person she underestimated the most. Lily. People around her shifted. Some leaned away slightly. Others avoided eye contact. Because now, being near her didn't feel comfortable anymore. Not after what everyone had just seen. Not after what everyone had just heard. And I noticed something else. My aunt, who had been nodding along earlier, now sat quietly, her arms crossed differently. Not defensive. Just unsure. That's what exposure does. It doesn't just reveal one person. It makes everyone question themselves. The rest of the play continued. Kids forgot lines. Parents laughed gently. The normal rhythm returned. But something had changed. Something permanent. Because now, Lily wasn't the one who might mess up. He was the one who came back stronger. And that kind of story, people remember. When the final curtain closed, the applause came again. And this time, Lily bowed with the rest of the cast. Not hiding. Not hesitating. Standing right where she belonged. Afterward, the hallway filled with voices. Parents congratulating kids. Teachers smiling. Phones recording little moments of pride. And before I could even reach her, someone stopped me. "You must be Lily's mom," a woman said, smiling warmly. I nodded, still overwhelmed. "She was incredible," she added. "That took real courage." Another parent joined. "My son was nervous too, but after watching her, I think he felt braver." That hit me in a way I didn't expect. Because Lily wasn't just growing anymore. She was inspiring. Quietly. Powerfully. Exactly the way I always hoped she would. I finally reached her. She ran into me. And I held her tight. "You did it," I whispered. Her voice, soft but steady, replied. I didn't stop. I pulled back just enough to look at her. And smiled. "No," I said. "You didn't." And that mattered more than anything else. But just as that moment settled, I felt a presence behind me. A familiar one. Hesitant. Slower than usual. I turned. And there she was. My mom. Standing there. For the first time in a long time. Without certainty. Without control. Without a ready-made opinion. Just standing. Like she didn't know what to say next. And honestly, that was a first. As for once, the silence wasn't Lily's. It was hers. My mom stood there just a few feet away from us. Not speaking. Not smiling. Not correcting anyone. It was strange. Almost unfamiliar. Because she always had something to say. Always had an opinion ready. A judgment. A comment that made her feel in control. But now, nothing. She looked at Lily first. Then at me. And for a second I thought maybe, just maybe, she was going to say something kind. Something real. But instead she cleared her throat and said quietly, I guess she did better than expected. That was it. That was all she could offer. Not, I'm proud of her. Not, I was wrong. Better than expected. I felt that same heat rise in my chest again. But this time I didn't react the way I used to. I didn't argue. I didn't explain. I didn't try to make her understand. Because for the first time, I realized something important. She already understood. She just didn't want to admit it. And that wasn't my responsibility anymore. I looked down at Lily, who was still holding my hand tightly. Then back at my mom. You don't get to measure her anymore, I said calmly. My voice wasn't loud. Didn't need to be. But you can choose to respect her, or stay out of her way. That landed. Not like an argument. More like a boundary. Final. My mom blinked, caught off guard. You're overreacting, she said automatically like she always did. But even she didn't sound convinced this time. No, I replied steady. I've just been reacting for too long. Silence again. But this silence was different. It wasn't empty. It was resolved. Lily squeezed my hand slightly. And I felt it. That shift. Not just in her. In me. Because I wasn't trying to win anymore. I wasn't trying to prove anything. I was just done accepting less. My mom looked around, noticing the way people were still glancing at her. The way conversations softened when she stepped closer. The way no one was engaging with her like before. And for the first time, she was the one outside the moment. Not in control of it. Not shaping it. Just in it. And it showed. I was just trying to be honest, she said again, quieter now. I nodded once. I know, I said. But honesty without care isn't help. She didn't respond. Because there wasn't much left to say. Not tonight. Not after everything. Mrs. Carter walked over then, breaking the tension gently. Danielle, she said with a warm smile. Lily was amazing tonight. I nodded, grateful. Thank you, for everything. She looked down at Lily. You earned that applause, she said softly. Lily smiled, a little shy but not hiding. Not shrinking. And that right there, that was everything. Mrs. Carter glanced briefly at my mom, then back at me. A silent acknowledgement. He knew. He had seen it all. And she had chosen to stand on the right side of it. That mattered more than I could explain. Keep encouraging her, she added. She's just getting started. I will, I said. As I meant it. Not just as a promise. But as a decision. One I had already made long ago. And now I would protect it more fiercely than ever. My mom stepped back slightly. Not dramatically. Not in defeat. But in realization. The kind that doesn't come with apologies right away. The kind that sits with you. Uncomfortable. Quiet. Unavoidable. She looked at Lily again. And this time, she didn't speak. Maybe she didn't know how. Maybe she didn't trust her own words anymore. Either way, that silence. It was the first honest thing she had given all night. And oddly enough, that was enough for me. Not forgiveness. Not closure. But a beginning. Because people don't always change in big, obvious ways. Sometimes, it starts like this. With them realizing. They're not the loudest voice in the room anymore. Maybe. They shouldn't be. I looked at Lily again. She was talking softly to one of her classmates now. Laughing a little. Relaxed. Free in a way I hadn't seen before. And it hit me. This wasn't just about one night. This wasn't just about a play. This was about something bigger. Something lasting. Because confidence doesn't come from never being challenged. Comes from facing that challenge. And standing anyway. And Lily? She had done exactly that. Not because the room was kind. But because she chose not to let it break her. And as I stood there watching her, I realized something else too. For years I had been trying to protect her from voices like my mom's. Trying to shield her from doubt. From judgment. From harsh words. But tonight showed me something different. I didn't need to silence those voices. I just needed to make sure. They weren't the ones she believed. And they weren't. Not anymore. Because now, she had her own. And it was strong enough to be heard. The ride home was quiet. Not heavy. Not tense. Just calm. Lily sat in the passenger seat, still holding a piece of her costume in her lap like she didn't want to let the moment go. Streetlights passed over us in soft patterns. And for once, there was nothing to fix. Nothing to explain. No questions hanging in the air. Just peace. After a few minutes, she looked over at me. Mom. I glanced at her, smiling. Yeah. She hesitated for a second, then said, I thought I was going to mess up. I nodded gently. I know. But I didn't stop, she added, her voice a little stronger. I smiled wider. No, I said. You didn't. She looked forward again, thinking. Then she said something that stayed with me. I think I was more scared of people watching me than forgetting the lines. I took a breath. Because that was it. That was always it. It's okay to be scared of that, I said softly. But you showed them who you are anyway. She didn't respond right away. Just leaned her head back against the seat. And I could see it. That quiet pride settling in. Not loud. Not dramatic. But real. When we got home, she didn't rush inside. She stood for a moment near the door looking up at me. Mom. Do you think I can do something like that again? I didn't even hesitate. I know you can. She smiled. And this time, there was no doubt behind it. She went inside lighter somehow. Freer. Like she had crossed something invisible and come out stronger on the other side. I stayed outside for a moment longer. Just breathing. Letting everything sink in. Because nights like this, they change things. Not all at once. But enough. Enough to shift direction. Enough to break patterns. Enough to start something new. My phone buzzed in my hand. A message. From my mom. I stared at the screen for a few seconds before opening it. I didn't mean to hurt her. That was it. No long explanation. No defense. Just that one line. And for a moment I didn't know how to feel. Because it wasn't an apology. But it wasn't nothing either. It was somewhere in between. Maybe. That's where change begins. Not with perfect words. But with the first honest ones. I didn't reply right away. Not because I was angry. But because I wasn't rushing anymore. For the first time, I felt like I didn't need her to understand everything. I just needed to keep choosing what was right for Lily. And for me. I locked my phone and slipped it into my pocket. Then walked inside. Lily was already in the living room, standing in front of the mirror. Practicing. Not perfectly. Not flawlessly. But confidently. She caught my reflection behind her and smiled. Was that part okay? She asked, repeating a line. I leaned against the doorway, watching her. And I realized something. This wasn't the end of the story. It was the beginning of a new one. One where she didn't shrink when people doubted her. One where she didn't wait for permission to be proud. One where her voice, no matter how it sounded, still mattered. Me. I wasn't just protecting her anymore. I was watching her grow into someone who could protect herself. Step by step. Word by word. Moment by moment. Weeks passed after that night. And things changed. Not loudly. Not dramatically. But noticeably. Family gatherings felt different. My mom spoke less. Listen more. Not perfectly. But enough to notice. She didn't interrupt Lily anymore. Didn't correct her mid-sentence. Didn't compare her to anyone else. And Lily? She didn't look down when she spoke. She didn't hesitate the same way. She wasn't trying to be perfect. She was just being herself. And that was more than enough. One afternoon we were at another family dinner. The usual setup. Same table. Same people. But a different energy. Lily was telling a story about school. And for a moment, she paused. Just like before. But this time, she didn't panic. She didn't look at me for help. She just took a breath. And kept going. No one interrupted. No one corrected her. No one laughed. Because now, they knew better. And maybe more importantly, she knew better. I caught my mom watching her. Quietly. Not judging. Just observing. And then, something small happened. Something most people wouldn't even notice. But I did. My mom smiled. Not big. Not dramatic. But real. And she didn't say a word. No comment. No correction. Just a quiet moment of acknowledgement. And that meant more than anything she could have said before. Because sometimes, growth doesn't come with speeches. It comes with silence. With restraint. With choosing not to tear something down. And that's where we were now. Not perfect. Not healed completely. But better. Stronger. Clearer. And as I sat there listening to Lily finish her story, confident. Unapologetic. Heard. I realized something I wish I had understood years ago. You can't control who believes in you. You can't force people to see your worth. But you can choose whose voice you carry with you, and whose voice you finally leave behind. If your child has ever been judged, doubted, or made to feel small, even by family, you know how deeply that cuts. Share your story in the comments. I want to hear it. Subscribe if you believe every child deserves support, not shame. And click hype to help this story reach someone who needs it. Your story has power. If you felt a connection to mine, please subscribe and share your journey in the comments. Every hype you give this video helps empower someone else. Thank you for being here. And thank you for listening.